You've been praying. You've been showing up. You've been reading the Word, going to church, doing everything you were told would work. And yet something inside you feels hollow, not rebellious, not backslidden, just empty. Like you're going through the motions of a faith that used to feel alive. And the worst part isn't the emptiness itself. It's the silence that surrounds it. You cry out and nothing comes back. You worship and feel nothing. You serve and go home more drained than when you arrived. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought keeps surfacing that you're almost too afraid to say out loud. What if God has moved on from me? What if the problem isn't your effort, your consistency, or even your faith, but something far more fundamental that nobody ever told you about? Because here's what I've seen in the lives of exhausted believers over and over again. The ones who feel the most distant from God are often the ones trying the hardest to reach Him. And that is not a coincidence. That is a clue. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why spiritual effort can actually work against you, what Psalm 46:10 is really saying beneath the surface, and the one shift that moves you from straining toward God to resting in Him. Think about your phone, not as a metaphor yet, just think about it literally. You use it all day. You run apps, scroll, send messages, make calls, and at some point, you notice the battery icon creeping toward red. So what do? You don't panic. You don't try to use it harder to generate more power. You don't shake it or squeeze it hoping energy appears. You plug it in. You connect it to the source and let the charge flow. Now here's where it becomes a metaphor. Most Christians who feel spiritually dry are not lazy. They are not disconnected from God because they stopped caring. They feel empty because they have been running hard without plugging in. They have been expending spiritual energy through activity, through effort, through performance, and they have mistaken the activity itself for the connection. But activity is not connection. Doing things for God is not the same as being with God. You can be the busiest person in your church and be running on empty at the same time. That is exactly what Jesus diagnosed 2,000 years ago, and He said it more plainly than we give Him credit for. Psalm 46 was written in a moment of absolute crisis. The earth is described as giving way. Mountains are falling into the sea. Nations are in uproar. The imagery is catastrophic. Everything stable is collapsing. And right into the center of that chaos, God speaks. Not with a strategy, not with a 5-step plan. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." Hear this clearly. The Hebrew word translated "be still," Rapha, does not simply mean quiet your voice. It means to let go, to release your grip, to stop straining. It carries the image of hands that have been clenched around something finally opening. God is not asking for silence as a religious exercise. He is asking for surrender of the effort itself. He is saying, stop trying to hold the world together. Stop trying to generate what only I can give. Let go, and in the letting go, you will find that I was already here. This is the refrain that changes everything. The distance you feel is not evidence that God has withdrawn. It is often evidence that you have been so busy reaching for Him that you never stop to receive Him. There are two kinds of believers. You have probably met both of them. Maybe you have been both of them. The first is the striver. The striver wakes up feeling distant from God and immediately adds more devotions, more fasting, more serving, more commitments. The striver believes that spiritual closeness is something you earn through accumulation, and that if you just do enough, feel enough, sacrifice enough, eventually God will show up and fill the emptiness. The striver is sincere, deeply sincere, but the striver is exhausted, and underneath the exhaustion is a quiet, unspoken fear that no matter how much they do, it will never be quite enough. The second is the abider. The abider has learned it often through hitting the wall of burnout. That closeness with God is not manufactured. It is received. The abider has stopped treating time with God as a performance review and started treating it as a return home, not a transaction, not a religious duty, a dwelling. And the abider is not perfect. The abider still struggles, still doubts, still has hard days. But the abider knows where to go when the weight gets heavy, and they know how to be still long enough to actually receive what God has already prepared. The question is not which one you want to be. The question is which one you are right now. and whether you are ready for the shift. So how do you actually make the shift? How do you move from striving to abiding not as a concept, but as a daily lived reality? Here are 3 specific switches that change everything. Switch 1. The narrative switch. The flip. Stop telling yourself that you are far from God. Start telling yourself the truth. Most burned-out believers are running a story on repeat inside their minds. A story that says, "I've lost it. I've drifted. God feels gone." And that story, repeated enough times, becomes the lens through which every spiritual experience gets filtered. You worship and feel nothing, and the story says, "See, proof. He's distant." You pray and hear silence, and the story says, "You're too far gone." But Psalm 46:10 doesn't say, God became near when everything was stable. It says He was already there in the middle of the earthquake. The earth was giving way and God was still present, still sovereign, still close. The command to be still wasn't about creating His presence, it was about becoming quiet enough to perceive the presence that never left. The practice, every morning before you do anything else. Speak this out loud, not as a feeling, but as a declaration. God is here. I am not far. I am returning to what was always available. You are not generating truth by saying it. You are aligning your mind with truth that already exists. Do this for 7 days and watch how the narrative begins to loosen its grip. Switch 2. The posture switch. The flip. Stop coming to God with a task list. Start coming to God with open hands. The striver approaches God like a meeting with a manager, agenda ready, requests prepared, performance report in hand. And there is nothing wrong with bringing your needs to God. Scripture commands it. But when every moment with God becomes transactional, when you only come when you need something or when guilt drives you there, the relationship hollows out. You are present in body but absent in posture. The abider learns to come differently. Open hands. No agenda. Just, here I am. I need nothing from you right now except you. This is what the mystics called resting in God. And it sounds abstract until you actually try it and feel the difference. 5 minutes of sitting in intentional stillness before God. Not asking, not performing, not confessing a list, just being present will do more for your spiritual dryness than an hour of activity-driven devotion. The practice, before your prayer time each day, take 2 full minutes of silence. No words. No requests. Just conscious awareness that you are in the presence of God. Let Him speak first, or let Him be silent. Either way, you are practicing the posture of the abider, and that posture, over time, becomes your default. Switch 3. The identity switch. The flip. Stop measuring your closeness to God by how you feel. Start measuring it by who He says you are. Feelings are real, but feelings are not always true. You can feel abandoned and be held. You can feel empty and be filled. You can feel distant and be closer than you realize. Psalm 46 was written by people who felt the earth shaking beneath them. And yet the theological reality the psalm declares is that God was their refuge and strength, a very present help. Present. Not distant. Present even when everything felt like collapse. Listen to me. Your feelings are not your compass here. Scripture is your compass. And Scripture says that nothing, not exhaustion, not dryness, not spiritual burnout, not the silence you've been sitting in, nothing separates you from the love of God. You are not a stranger He is tolerating. You are a child He is pursuing. That identity does not change based on your spiritual performance. The practice. Write down one truth about who God says you are and put it somewhere. You will see it every single day. Not a motivational quote, a scripture, a declaration rooted in the Word. Let that truth speak louder than the feeling. When these 3 switches become your rhythm, when the narrative changes, when the posture opens, when the identity settles, as something begins to shift in your everyday life, the quiet moments stop feeling empty and start feeling full. You stop dreading your time with God and start returning to it like water after a long dry walk. The weight does not disappear overnight, but it becomes bearable, and then lighter. And then one day you realize you have not been straining for weeks. You have been abiding, and there is a peace underneath everything that you cannot fully explain, only receive. It's not about doing more. It's about receiving what's already there. It's not about earning His presence. It's about returning to it. If this video spoke to something real in your life, type the words "Father, find me" here in the comments right now. Not as a performance, as a prayer. Let that be your declaration today. And if you know someone who is running on empty, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear. If you want more of this practical, grounded, scripture-rooted teaching for the believer who is tired of being tired, subscribe to Bible Yourself. New videos every week, built for people who are serious about going deeper with God.